The pairing of Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley is not to be messed with. Miro with the game-tying goal. Thomas Harley wins it in overtime. Stars take 2 points away from the Ducks. Let's jump into it next on Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. What do you know? The pairing we have been praying about has their fingerprints all over last night's victory in overtime with Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley. Miro looked phenomenal in his return. He was rusty at some points, I will give you that, but that was to be expected, and Harley wins it in overtime. A beautiful goal, a 4-3 victory over the Anaheim Ducks. Another thrilling win on home ice for the Dallas Stars, but there was some negatives like sloppy defensive play. That's going to come back to haunt the Stars when it really matters. And I want to touch on Jake Oettinger and what feels like some struggles as of late. It hasn't been his best season. I just want to kind of revisit Jake Oettinger here today on Locked On Stars. I hope you're having a wonderful Friday. No better way to head into the weekend with a Stars win. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So we begin with Miro's return. Man, it's nice to have him back when he's galloping down the ice and he's so shifty and just making things happen. And yes, he did have some moments where it looked like he had been off for 3 weeks, specifically on the power play. He wasn't at his best, but when the Stars really needed him, he played his best hockey on the night. And that was just so great to see. Scores the game-tying goal in the third period. He did get some luck off a deflection, but he was just so impactful once again. This season, an expected goal percentage as a pairing, and you can certainly see why. Thomas Harley was honestly the best player on the ice for the Stars last night, and he said, I'm doing it myself in overtime. His 10th goal of the season, leads all Stars defensemen. It was a beauty to win it in overtime, and he was making things happen left and right. He is so fluid too, and when him and Miro are together, it's just this great combination of guys that can hold on to the puck. Number one, they're so patient and poised, and then they can distribute off of that. I love Harley's mindset where he's more of a goal scorer, so to speak. He's looking to score. Miro is more looking to defer and try to find the open guy rather than put the puck on net, even though it rewarded him yesterday with finding the back of the net against Gibson. But it was just great to see him. Got his 5th goal of the season in his return. Thomas Harley with a couple of points continues to be on his tear. And that pairing is just so good. They're so good. Yes, they gave up a goal early in that first period on that first shift as the Stars got puck watching, and the hungry nature of the Anaheim Ducks ended up rewarding them with a goal to give them a 3-2 lead. And the Stars just had moments in the game like that where they just kind of fell asleep for a bit, and Anaheim made you pay. And as I said yesterday, a team that the Stars should be able to handle, they're going to have their struggles. And they certainly did last night. But the big storyline is Miro Heiskanen has returned. He got through the game healthy, and it was a busy return. He led all Stars with 25 minutes and 33 seconds of time on ice. That probably wasn't how Pete DeBoer drew it up, but you play a really tight game, and he was in the final minute of the third period along with Esa Lindell, chewing up some time late to get that game to overtime. But a 72% Corsi percentage for Miro. That was fifth on the team, but no surprise either. Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen, the highest ranked Stars via hockey stat cards in the game. Game score 3.68 for Thomas Harley, led all skaters in the contest. Heiskanen at 2.85. Expected goals for 1.31 for Harley, 1.36 for Heiskanen. They just make things happen when they're on the ice. Harley mentioned before the game as well to the media that, well, I'll be playing in the offensive zone a lot because Miro's so good with the puck. So I think he was pretty giddy about the opportunity to play with Miro. And that was the silver lining of Miro being out and having Lundkvist play. He has bought himself some time now as the sixth defenseman, so to speak, because Hanley will be the odd man out. This is the beauty of Lundkvist playing really well in the month of January, because now they trust Lundkvist enough to play with Suter. Now you have the luxury of playing Harley with Heiskanen all the time, or at most times when you have both of them. Of course, you're going to flip-flop them with whoever at any point during the game, whether that's PK, whether that's power play. We saw late, you had Miro and Esa. This just gives them so many different pieces, and now they have some versatility. We even saw Harley with Hakanpää at points during the game. That allows DeBoer to flip-flop Miro and Harley whenever he needs, whether he needs somebody to chew up some ice time. Maybe the Stars are in penalty trouble. They stayed very disciplined yesterday, which was a great sign. So you just have versatility on the back end, and it's still not great by any means. It still has holes, and they need to address it. But Miro and Harley can clean up a ton of mistakes, namely early in the game when Miro had a bad turnover. Terry went in on the breakaway, tried to beat Oettinger with the backhand shovel attempt. Oettinger makes the save. Harley comes racing back to tie up Henrique to keep it from making that a 1-1 game at the time. Lundkvist played a 2-on-1 brilliantly in the first period too, taking away the pass. Oettinger never had to see a shot other than the ricochet off of Lundkvist's skate that almost went in, but it gives you that versatility. So it's so much better to watch as a unit. It really is, with Miro being back. And it wasn't pretty by any means. Look, we're going to certainly touch on that here today. But huge news, though. Huge news coming out of that game with Miro being healthy, looked really good, didn't miss a beat. And him and Thomas Harley are going to be the pairing of the future, and the Stars are going to reap benefits of that for years to come. Harley at 5-on-5 was just so electric. He ended up with, 12 scoring chances at 5-on-5 in the game. He ended up with a Corsi percentage of 70. The Stars did not manage the puck particularly well in the game, but they generated more chances in the contest, and they were on the Ducks. They outchanced them 25-12 at 5-on-5. Gibson was really good. Gibson was so good, as he usually is against the Stars. And Dallas just kind of pulled up their bootstraps, so to speak, and went to work to get this one, because their defensive play and a tough goal for Oettinger to give up had the Ducks in this one. But such a such a satisfying win. You needed to get 2 points against the Ducks. Yes, you would have liked not to go to overtime, but you have to get a full 2, and they certainly did. But Miro in his return, the game-tying goal, his 5th of the season. Harley with an assist on that one, and then he wins it in overtime. They give Pavelski the assist on the faceoff win. Just so fun to watch Harley with the puck, and he's like, I'm going to go 200 feet. I'm going to bury this. Just outraces everybody and then rips it upstairs. So great to see the top pairing, a pairing that Stars fans and myself have been clamoring for all season long. And we just had to wait for Miro to get hurt, Lundkvist to play better, and then Miro to return. And now we get this pairing that the Stars are certainly going to reap the benefits of. So a thrilling victory on home ice for the Dallas Stars. Once again, they've just played so many close and exciting, entertaining hockey games on home ice this season, and they're winning, which is the good news. Their overtime record's so much better. It's so nice to sit here and to be able to talk about overtime wins at a more frequent rate than it was than you were able to do last season. And of course, I wasn't doing this podcast at this time, but I feel for Dane, who had to constantly talk after an overtime loss. It can be gut-wrenching, and this one certainly would have been against a team you should have beat, and they did. So 4-3 victory in overtime. Miro is back. Miro scores. Thomas Harley scores, and the Stars are off and running. One more game on Saturday. It's a matinee before they wrap up before All-Star break. Let's talk a bit about this sloppy defensive play for the Stars. I have some thoughts and just want to get some things off my chest at the same time, and we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Indeed. Indeed is driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree. Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So go ahead and join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL championship games are set, and you can get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The championship games are set, as I mentioned. The Baltimore Ravens taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you have the Detroit Lions heading to take on the San Francisco 49ers. Should be a fun weekend. Go ahead and make some money while you watch the playoff action this weekend. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Export tab, or even make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. And there is so much more. So go ahead, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, make your first bet a layup, and make some money this weekend watching the championship games in the NFL. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Go over there to subscribe. Some very good stuff covering all the top sports stories in the world. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Stars as well. Appreciate all you everydayers out there. It's been a fantastic week. So many storylines, so much to talk about within this Dallas Stars team. And hopefully it gets back to normal to some degree with Miro coming back, Oettinger's back. It had been crazy. The Stars have not had Jake Oettinger and Miro Heiskanen in the same game since December 15th. So it has been a while. Now, particularly on this sloppy defensive play, I find myself seeing this in games when it's really chaotic. I just feel like the Stars do not thrive when the game is a bit unhinged, so to speak. And you can, of course, let me know if you see it in a different way. But I feel like when the game is sloppy and maybe playing teams such as Anaheim or even Detroit to some degree, when it's not so much structured play and everybody's in their systems, when it's really chaotic and kind of a track meet and just floating up and down the ice, the Stars really seem to struggle to defend because they get out of position, they miss their mark on somebody, and they're just not good in front of their own net. When it becomes kind of that high-paced, chaotic type of game. They looked last night at certain parts in the game. They just were not connected. And I find myself seeing that at times, and you're like, yeah, this is going to be a tough game for them to lock down. I feel like you can just see it when they are connected and when they aren't. And yesterday, they just did not seem to be on the same page at points in the game, namely the second goal for Anaheim in that second period. You have the turnover. Suter gets caught looking around. Terry slips behind him, and then he makes it a 2-1 hockey game. The one in the first, of course, is just a bad goal for Oettinger to give up. And then you see in the third as well, Silverberg, that's just really hard forechecking. And we've seen that numerous occasions this season. A team, it's hard on the forecheck. They win a battle, and then a guy gets loose in front because the Stars don't have him marked, and then it ends up in the back of your net. But there was so many times as well when even Leo Carlson, Troy Terry, who played a phenomenal hockey game. Man, he was all over the place. The puck was magnetic to him. But Carlson in that third period would just get loose and find himself in front of the net. And really, there's no pushback. There's nobody there to deter him. He just kind of finds his way to the front of the net and gets a clean look on Oettinger. And you just see it way too much. And the Stars had a few sloppy plays that did not end up in the back of their net, and it didn't cost them, fortunately, but there was a few that did. And this season as well, it just doesn't feel like Ottinger's really getting that save every single time there's a breakdown either. And he's still doing it, but it doesn't feel like it's at a more consistent pace or consistent occurrence as we've seen in the previous 2 years, since it's been a bit of an off year for Jake Oettinger. It certainly has, but the sloppy defensive play has been consistent and nothing new. And I think that really comes from just not being connected. And I don't have the best words on how to describe it, but it's just something I feel like I can see where in games, they just seem to be on par with each other, on the same wavelength, the way they're defending and, marking guys in front of their net, boxing out, sending a guy to the corner, making sure you have numbers and surrounding the puck. There's times you see it, and then there's times when it's a real chaotic game and the Stars are all out of sorts. And when they're not in their structure, that's when things go haywire. And maybe that's due to the personnel for some reason, and why Pete DeBoer really preaches puck management and preaches puck possession and preaches defensive structure. Because I don't think the Stars can be successful when games do kind of break down and are a bit loosey-goosey, so to speak. There are teams that are really talented and not very good that thrive in those type of situations where it's just kind of hectic and things will happen, bounces here and there. I just don't think the Stars really match up with teams that well that thrive in those. And I just don't think it's a benefit to their success. It doesn't enable success for them. So those are just some of my quick thoughts on the sloppy defensive play. They just don't look connected in some games. And I wish I could really describe it to an elevated level, but it's just something I feel like I see. and some games like, oh yeah, they look together and they may be a bit better in the defensive zone tonight. But last night it was like, okay, guys just seem out of sorts. And it makes you nervous almost watching. It's almost how I would describe it. You're just nervous. Feels like everything is going to go in. And that was sort of the game last night. Each game kind of has a story of its own. And last night kind of felt that way. And the Stars got to win either way. 4-3 victory over the Anaheim Ducks. Let's segue in to Jake Oettinger, because I did talk about it last week, how he looked like he was back, had that amazing game against the Kings. But we've seen this now a bit more than I would have liked to admit. Just some of these stinkers, so to speak, and hasn't been a phenomenal season for Jake Oettinger. Let's dive into that a bit more in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Make sure you follow Locked On Stars on Twitter and follow me on the X machine, the Twitter thing, Joey the Jet 19, where I'm constantly throwing out stuff into the world and you can take in if you would like. You do not have to, but maybe you do. I don't know. Okay, I want to speak about Jake Oettinger, and I'll be the first to attest. When he had that really rough stretch in the first half of the season, I was not hitting the panic button on Jake Oettinger. And I'm still not to some degree. It just has not been as clean as we've seen with him in years past. And once again, I don't know if this is him not trusting his body. Maybe he's still a bit in his head about where his physical health is, or is it just straight up mental and the game is getting to him a bit? I still am not worried about him in huge moments. I'm really not. I feel like when the Stars get to the playoffs eventually, he's going to elevate his game and he's going to be fine, because he's pretty much done that at every point in his career, in his first couple of playoff runs. And look, He is still so young. It's another reason I'm not jumping on this, Ottinger's just not good anymore. Look, he's not one of the elite goaltenders this year by any means. And I'm not trying to come on here and say that. He's like 28th in save percentage amongst netminders, and he's 32nd in save percentage, I believe. But he gives up a few here and there. And every goal he does, his movements just don't seem to be as fluid and crisp at some points. And maybe that is just the lack of not playing as much, because he had that injury that took him out for about a month. He just hasn't been able to kind of play his way into a rhythm, so to speak, because in the offseason, he did not step on the ice very much, and he was off to an incredible start. I mean, the Stars really only won games because of him and Wedgwood in a lot of instances, because they were remarkable. And then as the year kind of tracked along, it just kind of dipped and dipped. He still has his moments, of course, but it hasn't been to that elite level that we've seen this season. And it doesn't help that the Stars' defense has taken a dip, and now their goaltending to some degree has taken a dip, and that'll hurt your overall defense. They are middle of the pack in goals against average. It's something that all quality teams and teams that win Stanley Cups rank very highly in, is goals against. I think the one team that was outside the top 10 the last like 20 years was that Washington team. It's just something that almost all teams have a good a good characteristic. They shut down opposing offenses, and the Stars just haven't been able to find that much. It's a combination. I think it's just the latter of they're not phenomenal defensively, and Ottinger's been a bit down in his play recently. He did look phenomenal in that game against Los Angeles, and he has, for the most part, he's looked much better in his return to the pipes. I think he certainly has. He's looked better than he has worse for the majority of time, and maybe that's not saying a whole lot. And look, he's only been back for a few weeks, so maybe this conversation is a bit more a bit premature, but the numbers certainly are not up to par for what we've been accustomed to seeing Jake Oettinger. And I don't think that's any surprise. It's just not where you would expect for the level of netmind he would love to find himself in, of course. So a .902 save percentage this season, which has him, I believe it's about 26th this or something. I'll have to see it. Sorry. No, he's actually dropped even higher. 44th, in save percentage at .902 and a 3.01 goals against average. It's creeped above 3. And I guess maybe a silver lining to this whole fact is while they've been able to do this well, even with Oettinger not playing at his best and their defense not being very good. So when they figure out those two, or if Oettinger returns to form, like, oh my goodness, watch out. This team is going to be scary, right? And I feel like there's kind of two ways to look at it. I am panicking to some degree because the defense needs to get fixed. Something needs to change there. And I'm not so worried about Oettinger getting back to his old self. I'm going to throw my money on that. I'm going to hemorrhage my money on that, just because when the moment shines its brightest, I just feel like Otter plays up to that level every time. I just think he elevates his play. So I'll bet my money on that. So if you get this defense thing turned around a bit, man, seems going to be hard to beat. They're going to be very hard to beat. Going to be tough out. So yeah, those are just some of my overall thoughts on Jake Oettinger. Gave up a stinker last night. And the Stars certainly didn't help him because there was a couple just within 3 feet of him and he couldn't do much about it, unfortunately. But the Stars get the win. They win 4-3 and they wrap up a wonderful week for me here, at least on Locked On Stars. They wrap up the week and before the All-Star break tomorrow. 1 o'clock start against the Washington Capitals on Saturday, by the way. So a Saturday matinee against the Cats. Should be a fun one on home ice. Appreciate all the love and support. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Never miss an episode of Locked On Stars. Always appreciate you everydayers. Thank you guys so much for rocking along with me. We'll have plenty to jump into next week. We have so many different storylines we can get into with the All-Star break. So we'll just kind of hit the ground running, see what pops into my mind, and hopefully I have some exciting content for the next week. And we get to watch Jake Oettinger in the All-Star game, which will be fun as well. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and hopefully a Stars win in a thrilling All-Star game. We will see you next week. So long, Stars fans.